Hello, today we are going to paint this iris. Um, the wet into wet wash is already in progress. I'm using, well, let me start first by saying that I only wet the negative areas of the painting. Okay, so I went around with just water on my brush, clean water, and I'm just trying to achieve some abstraction. That's just basically big blotches of color, blending themselves into one another. And here I'm just adding some dark accents into some deeper pockets. Here I'm giving a little spray. It does get a little messy. Sometimes it oversprays when you try to splatter. So at this stage, it's okay because everything is wet, and that's what we want. We want to try to get different textures, different colors, and you'll see what this looks like when it's dry. At some point, within probably the next few minutes, I will be moving the paper around while it's wet, and you'll see what I mean. I'm going to let gravity move the puddles of paint where I want them to go. That's a little green, a little separate green for the stem, indicating the left side, or actually the right side being the light side, and the right side being the shadow side. So I'm just trying to indicate. Now here we go. Okay. Sorry for the dizziness. Sometimes you actually have to take, this is mounted on, I think it's like gator board or something, and you have to kind of hit it. You have to slam the board down, or if you're working on a block or a piece of paper, you have to, hit it bluntly on a tabletop, and that'll help move around those washes and help them blend together. We will be doing a second wash, but for now, we're working on the flower itself. If you guys need to know the colors of the background, right now I'm using a combination of dioxide purple and a crazy color that one of my students turned me on to. It's called opera pink. It's really, really intense. You could, I think there's one, it's a manganese or a rose madder would work too. The reason for those colors is that alizarin crimson kind of loses its intensity at lighter washes. It's great for middle to darker tones, but not so good for highlights and very, very light areas. So that's what's happening here. I'm adding that to the edges, and I'm trying to let the water kind of blend around. This is, and here too, just adding a little bit of water and color, and you'll see that some of that green, which by the way is, the background was sap green, a little burnt umber. You can almost see it now while it's in its dry state. Alizarin crimson on that lower left-hand corner, and some of the dioxide purple next to a burnt sienna and orange wash. There's a lot of things going on. That background is really just representing whatever's in the flower bed, let's say. So if there are other flowers in the distance, they're sort of like, consider those out of focus embellishments, right? You don't have to paint every little flower. In fact, in the reference picture, you'll see that there's really not a lot of things going on. Now, you'll also notice too that I changed the composition from the inset picture that you see. And now I'm adding salt, okay? I know the doctor told me to lay off the salt, but I can put it on my watercolor as long as I don't eat it. Now, for those of you who understand what ice melt does to ice, it actually absorbs it. But here, what it's doing, it's pulling up the pigment from the paper, right? Giving us these little tiny dots and textures in the petals. And that's what we want. We want to get a little texture. We want to get a little bit of accent just under the flower. And that's what we're doing now, actually. So, and you could put that on at any point as long as the paint is wet. It won't pull up dry paint. So it has to be wet and workable. And here I am again for maybe the second wash. Now, as I put these lines in, okay, I'm just trying to approximate and get the characteristic of the flower. I'm not after trying to do a horticultural illustration here. I really just want to get the essence of this flower. That's it, right? I want to feel like I'm outside. If I was painting this in plein air, I would not have a lot of time to do it, and I'd want to get as much of that character of that flower as possible without going into too much detail. And if you wanted to do more detail, yeah, start off with a stronger and a more detailed drawing and work thinner layers, washes rather, and build up on those layers. And then you can get some beautiful gradations. That's not necessarily my style, or it's not the style that I'm teaching here, but I prefer like something a little bit more spontaneous and fresh. Now, working along the edges, that seems to be what this flower is doing. The iris has these very unusual shaped petals. They're pretty in that sense that they're unusual, but there's no rhyme or reason. It's not like a tulip petal or a daisy petal, or they don't have like specific uniform shapes, and that's kind of what makes them interesting. Is that they all grow in a different way. Now, what I did on mine is I made the right petal a little longer just to fill in that space. And as you can see in the inset photo, I did a whole different approach. I made mine horizontal, more so for the viewers on YouTube. It's a better it is the format, right? It's better than vertical. You don't have like negative shapes, sides, right? So now I'm going over my second wash, and you can see the flower really popping out. Now, sometimes I wish that, I don't know, when I also paint in oil, and I love like the shiny varnish surface. And actually right now, the surface now, being that it's, it's a little on the shiny side, it's wet, it's a little darker, it really looks nice. It has like this really deep feeling of, well, it's conveying depth. And now I'm just adding more and more color. Here you can add some purples, other color to represent some buds that are in the background that might be from the same grouping. And there it is. That's pretty much the final. I don't think I do any more on this. No, actually I do. Little splattering. You'll see that I painted a few little splats here and there by hand, and use the side of the brush against my finger or any blunt object to get that paint to project from my brush to the surface of the paper. Notice that those other pieces of paper there, I just grabbed a printout that I had around, and there it is. Now you'll actually see that I'm painting some little shapes back there to indicate some foliage, right? Again, it's indication, we're not illustrating. Here I felt I needed a little bit more roundness to that stem, and I gave it one more little pass, and that's it. I think here I sign it, and I think the next picture you'll see, I'm taking the tape off the edges so you can see the unveiling, and the next picture is the final. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to click subscribe and like. I'll see you next time. Bye now.